What do you know about Loki? The real Loki, not the Marvel one. We usually know that Loki is a trickster, but it is because of Marvel that there is a common misconception that Loki is Thor's brother and somewhat of a good guy slash anti-hero type of dude.
Your savior is here!
Well, I hate to be the one to break this to you, but Loki is responsible for the end of the world. He is not Thor's brother. He is, however, the sworn blood brother of Odin, which is cool, because it's like bad boys for life, bro, what's up? Until Loki kills Odin's son. Yeah, that makes you a bad guy in my book. And Loki also gave birth to a horse once, an 8-legged horse, so in my dictionary that makes you a weird guy, and weird and bad is a combination that usually makes you very dangerous, which Loki is. And all of his children are bringers of evil. One of Loki's sons is a giant wolf that kills Odin during Ragnarök. Another one of Loki's sons is a giant snake that kills Thor during Ragnarök. And Loki's daughter, Hel, rules the eponymous Hel that gives Loki the army to invade Asgard and start Ragnarök to end the universe. So clearly, at some point, somebody should have made Loki get a vasectomy. I mean, damn, this guy's seed is dangerous, bro. At least condoms or something. I don't know what it was back in the day. Sheepskin? I mean, make Loki wrap it up, bro. Come on. And all of the above is why I call this episode Note that there are some detailed extra facts about Loki that don't really fit the flow of my storytelling, but for completion's sake, I'll include them at the end of the video, so watch until then if you want everything there is to know about Loki. Let's start in the beginning. No one knows where Loki really comes from. Nobody except for him and his blood brother Odin. In Norse mythology, Loki just appears in Asgard one day after Odin already established that realm and all the 8 others and sits on the throne as the All-Father, ruling over everything. Loki literally just appears and asks Odin to make good on his blood brother promise, because Odin promised that wherever he drinks, Loki shall have a place. That is why Loki is made one of the Aesir gods, even though he is not a god. Loki was born a Jötun, which makes him a Jötna, which you might know better as the frost giants or the enemies of the gods. No one really knows how Loki and Odin became blood brothers. It's long in their past and might have something to do with Odin being half Jötun himself. Yeah, surprise. If you didn't know that, the main god is actually half Jötun and the Jötun are the enemies of the gods. So that's a self-hate boner that Odin has right there. I don't know. But him and Loki are blood brothers. Remember that. As an Aesir, which is what the people of Asgard are called, by the way, the only ones that call them Asgardians are Marvel and some of my favorite X-rated movies. As an Aesir, Loki often fought with the other gods against his own kin, the Jötnar, and was also the one responsible for Thor getting his powerful hammer Mjolnir, aka the weapon of mass genocide against the Jötnar, and Odin receiving his powerful spear Gungnir. But in general, all the good Loki did was usually the god of mischief making up for trouble he caused in the first place. Like this story, for example. The Aesir gods were building a wall around Asgard and were running out of labor. So Loki was like, hey, let's ask one of our savage neighbors slash enemies, a Jötun, since they're so strong, they should be really good at construction work against their will. Sounds like something somebody would say before they hop on that ship to Africa to get themselves a bunch of slaves, so I don't know how that makes me feel about Loki. They asked Jötun, and he said that if he gets the job done within their desired deadline, he wants to marry the goddess of beauty, Freya, in return. A ridiculous request, since Freya was one of the most dignified and important goddesses in all of Asgard. So Loki said, okay, yeah, that sounds reasonable. All the gods freaked out, but Loki never intended to give the Jötun a realistic deadline. He set him up to fail from the start. Typical Loki scheme. Also a typical slaver's scheme. Damn, Loki. With the prospect of tapping Freya's divine booty, this Jötun was working at that thirst spade, you get me? And with the help of his giant horse, a powerful stallion, it looked like Freya was set for a Jötna wedding because he was about to make the deadline. But Loki found a solution to the problem he created in the first place. He sabotaged the giant's work, making him miss the deadline by shape-shifting into a female horse to lure the giant stallion away and have sex with it. Standard diversion tactic. For Loki, that's standard diversion tactics. But it worked. The giant missed the deadline, Freya was safe, and Loki was pregnant.
Surprise!
All good though, because he then gave birth to an 8-legged horse that Odin rides to this day. Stories like that were basically what Loki was all about, and there's tons of them. Like, Loki is also responsible for the curse of a golden ring of power that brought doom to generations of dwarves, a story that later inspired the Lord of the Rings, and a lot of other stuff. The point is that anything good Loki does involves a problem he caused, and he uses his wits and trickery to solve it. But there was a general trend of Loki's deeds and missteps progressively getting worse and worse, all pointing to an eventual disaster. Foreshadowing, that are already spoiled in the intro, because I started the intro with Ragnarok this, Ragnarok that, so you kind of already know. Even said he brings Ragnarok. Okay. Loki also had a family on Asgard, his wife Sigyn and his 2 sons Narfi and Vali. Remember that, an Aesir family. But my man also had a bit of a giant fetish and got his freak on the side with the giantess Angrboda, with whom he had 3 slightly different children. The giant wolf Fenrir, the giant snake Jörmungandr, and Hel, a woman that was half beautiful and half corpse. Again, vasectomy at some point, I don't know, maybe after the wolf? Definitely after the snake. The kids were secret, living in Jotunheim, in the home of the Jötnar. But at some point, Odin had visions of the end of the world, of Ragnarök, and everybody's death at the hand of a snake and a wolf and a half-corpse woman. And he was like, yeah, that has Loki written all over it. So he forced their location out of Loki and sent Thor and the god of war Tyr to get the children. Then Odin threw the snake into the ocean to die, sent the half-corpse woman into hell to be with the other corpses, and they kept the wolf because it was a puppy, and puppies are cute. Tyr was the one who raised the wolf, Fenrir, who grew bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and so massive that he really became a problem, and Odin had him chained to a rock for all eternity, because that's how you deal with problems. And I guess also, he wasn't the puppy anymore. He wasn't cute.
You're still the cutest. You're still the cutest. You're still the cutest. I love you so much. I love you so much.
So with his kids locked away by his supposed blood brother Odin, Loki wasn't exactly feeling the blood love as much anymore and grew increasingly distant and angry. And his anger singled in on Odin's favorite son, Baldur, the god of light. Good, kind, happy, helpful, beloved by all, essentially the opposite of Loki. Baldur, though, was once prophesied to die, so Odin and Baldur's mother Frigg made sure to get a promise from everything in existence to never harm Baldur. People, gods, objects, plants, everything, all to avoid Baldur dying, not just for the sake of their son, but also since the prophecy mentioned that Baldur's death would be the catalyst for Ragnarök, the end of the world. And it worked. After everything swore an oath not to harm Baldur, Baldur was. Nothing could harm him, not axes, not spears, not fire, nothing. So the Viking gods turned this into a game where they would get drunk and casually hurl spears and other weapons at Baldur that just bounced off of him because, that's how you responsibly deal with prophecy and don't tempt fate at all. It's the Viking way of doing things. Everybody was having fun with Invincible Baldur, which just made Loki increasingly more jealous and angry. So he made it his mission to find out how he can harm this beloved invincible god of light, and found out that no one's ever gotten a promise from the laurel tree not to harm Baldur. So Loki went to the laurel tree, fashioned an arrow out of laurel, and never wanted to hold the smoking gun himself, had Baldur's blind brother shoot the arrow at Baldur while guiding his aim and telling the brother it was a normal arrow that would just bounce off of Invincible Baldur like everything else that was thrown at him as part of the drinking game. The laurel arrow was fired, struck Baldur in the heart, and killed him. Despite Loki's best efforts, it was however quickly found out that he was responsible, and this was a mess Loki couldn't talk his way out of. The god of mischief crossed the line. This was not just mischief, this was murder. And because everybody loved Baldur, everybody wanted Loki dead. But Odin and Loki were still sworn blood brothers, remember? So Odin couldn't kill him since he promised Loki would always have a place by his side. So instead, he tied Loki against a rock in a cave on Asgard. Tied Loki to said rock with the intestines of a name I asked you to remember earlier, the intestines of Loki's Aesir's son, Narfi. But for Odin's wrath, having Loki tied to the rock with the intestines of his own son wasn't enough. Odin also had poison endlessly drip on Loki's forehead, causing agonizing pain with every drop. This was Loki's forever fate, and his loyal wife Sigyn remained by his side for all of his eternal punishment, collecting all the dripping poison in a bowl, shielding Loki from the pain. That's my definition for ride or die from now on. I don't care, man. That's going on my Tinder profile. If you're not like Loki's wife, miss me with that shit. But when the bowl was full and she had to empty it, the poison would hit Loki's forehead and the pain would be so agonizing that Loki would shake so viciously it would cause earthquakes throughout the 9 realms, including Midgard, aka Earth. AKA our earthquakes are caused by Loki's pain. How cool is that? That's one of those cool mythology facts that I love. Loki was destined to suffer this fate forever and spent ages tied to the rock with nothing to do but planning his revenge and building up his hatred for Odin and the gods, as did his chained up wolf son Fenrir, as did his serpent son Jormungandr, exiled to the far oceans while growing so big he could circle the world, all the while Loki's daughter Hel, ruling the underworld, was preparing the army her father needed for the day he would free himself and unleash his vengeance upon all. Unleash Ragnarök, which I'll cover in a different video. Time for the extra notes. There are not a lot of extra notes in this one, but I want to point out that Loki, the god of mischief, is basically the OG trickster and responsible for the trickster archetype. So all those trickster characters you know and love, like the Joker from Batman and Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, and many others all throughout pop culture, they're all inspired by Loki. I kind of wanted to include Floki from Vikings in this list, but I think that one's pretty obvious. I briefly mentioned Loki ruining generations of dwarves with a golden ring. That tale is known as the Völsung Saga, an epic tale that later inspired the famous Der Ring des Nibelungen, The Hobbit, and The Lord of the Rings. But I'll probably do a dedicated video on the Völsung Saga one day because that's pretty cool. So stay tuned and I guess subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss when those other videos drop, because I'll be doing this 2 times a week. Hope you enjoyed, bringing you more mythology soon.